Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the last of our Return to School series, Your Spin on the New School Year. Um, my name is Chris Somerville. I'm part of the information and referral staff here at Michigan Alliance for Families. Before we jump into the presentation, I want to share a few items from our website. This is where you can find the PowerPoint and other resources for today's session. The link to today's handouts went out in the event reminder email, and I've already posted them in the chat as well. I will post them again shortly in the chat. If you're not familiar with us, this is our website, MichiganAllianceForFamilies.org. We provide free information and support for families who have young adults and children birth to age 26 who receive or may be eligible to receive special education services. The work of Michigan Alliance for Families is done on a regional basis. If you call our 800 number here at the top of the screen, through the magic of technology, you're connected with our parent mentor that covers your region of the state. You can also find the information here under the About Us tab. If you go to regions, we have this cool interactive map. And if you click your region of the state that you live in, you will be automatically directed to that parent mentor that covers your region and knows your local schools and your local resources. You can also find that information here under staff directory, along with all of the other people that work at Michigan Alliance for Families as well. We do have many partners that we work with across the state, and you can find those here under our partner resource list. These next tabs show some of our most popular topics. Our A to Z list is a great way to navigate the site. All kinds of great information here. Along with using the search bar if there's a specific topic that you're interested in. Here on the videos page, this is where we keep many of those previously reported presentations that we've offered. We do have many upcoming virtual learning opportunities available, and you can find those here under our upcoming events page. Up at the top of each page, we have our social media buttons for Facebook and Instagram. We really encourage you to follow both of those. This button here is for our YouTube channel. That's another place where we keep many of those previously recorded presentations as well. And this last icon is probably our most important. This is our sign up for our monthly e-newsletter and events notifications. This is the absolute best way to keep up to date with Michigan Alliance for Families. Real quick, before we get started, I do have a few things about the platform that we're using today, which is Zoom. We do ask that you please stay muted throughout the presentation. You may use the chat feature to ask questions during the presentation, and we will try to get those questions answered for you as they come in. We may have some time at the end of the presentation as well to ask some of those questions and get some answers from our presenters. If you would like to turn on closed captions, please click the live transcript button, then select show subtitles. Please feel free to private message me at any point if you have any technical issues that arise. Like I said, I shared a link to the handouts. I'll share those again in the chat as well here shortly. I will be also sharing a link to a short survey towards the end of the presentation. All of the work of Michigan Alliance for Families is provided at no cost thanks to our grant funding, but we do have to report back. That survey allows us to do that. And that survey also improves the work that we do as well. So that's really important. Please let me welcome our first presenter, Joyce Dearhamer.
Thanks, Chris. It still hasn't popped over to our first slide yet. Oh, back one. There we go. All right. Thanks, Chris. So hi, everyone. We're really happy to have you all here with us today. We're here to talk about your spin on the new school year. My name is Joyce Dearhamer, and I'm a regional parent mentor with Michigan Alliance for Families. I cover the areas of St. Clair and Lapeer counties. I am also the parent of a young adult with a disability. She has Down syndrome, and she is actually on today watching this information because we are currently going through all of this information together that we're presenting to you today, because it's all really valuable information for you to be able to think about at this stage in your life. So I hope that you learned something with the information. And next, my coworker Sally will introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Glad you're here today. My name is Sally Beauchamp, and I am the parent mentor for the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So I guess I'm a Youper, as we're called up here. And I'm glad to have you here. I have a son that has autism and a cognitive impairment. He's 26. And I'm happy that he is living in his own home and has a job and he's doing really well. And I hope things stay that way. So I'm just really glad that you all joined us today. And now I'd like to introduce to you Karen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Wang. I am the transition specialist for Michigan Alliance for Families. I help educate families statewide about the transition from special education into adult services. And I also have an adult son with multiple disabilities. And I have a 16-year-old son in high school who has a 504 plan. So everything that we're going to talk about today is something that Joyce, Sally, and I have all lived in our own lives. Next slide, please. Here's what we're going to talk about today. First, we will discuss what self-determination is and what it means in everyday life. And we'll also explain the term SPIN and how to use it in the classroom and in other situations. High school is all about making decisions to prepare for your future. So we're going to talk about opportunities to practice self-advocacy in school and beyond, and about making everyday decisions, both big decisions and little decisions that will lead us into adult life. Next slide. So some key terms that we're going to be using today to make sure that everybody has the same vocabulary I have here. A goal is something that you plan to do. So for example, someday my son wants to do stock and inventory at a big store with an elevator because he loves elevators and he loves to match up numbers on boxes and use all the equipment. So that's a goal for him. Or maybe you want to go to college someday and earn a business degree before starting your career. An opportunity means a chance to try something, and it can be something that you've never done before, or something that you didn't do so well the first time that you want another chance to try, or something that you already know how to do. So for example, maybe your school can help you find an internship at a business so that you can try out the type of career that you're interested in. My son is an artist and a writer, so he submits his work to art shows and he volunteers at a nonprofit art gallery. He also joined a creative writing group that publishes books of poetry, so he's also a published author now. These are examples of opportunities that you can look for in your own community. An IEP, or individualized education program, is the plan that your school team writes down about what you're going to learn and how you're going to learn it in school. By the time you're 16, you should be attending your annual IEP meeting with your school team. But you also need to know that you always have the right to attend your IEP at any age, no matter what your disability is. It's important for you to know about the plans that your school team is making for you. Transition can mean a lot of different things. Today, we're using it to mean the time period of moving from school into adult activities like work, earning money, or applying for benefits, taking care of yourself, learning to do things on your own, go to college, job training, plan for the future, and things like buying groceries and paying rent. Next slide, please. Self-determination is a big word for a simple idea. It means that every person can make decisions for themselves. Let's watch a really short video, less than 2 minutes, that can explain it for us. Chris, could you start the video?
There are 3 components of self-determination: decide, act, and believe. Self-determination is important because it helps us to work through barriers by self-advocating to achieve the goals we've set for ourselves. Being self-determined also means we look for solutions to overcome obstacles and don't give up when facing challenges. It's all about problem solving. There are 3 components of self-determination: decide, act, and believe. Decide means you set goals for yourself, knowing your own strengths and areas of need. You choose your goals based on what you want for your future. Second, act. When facing different barriers or conflicts, you will need to figure out what to do using your problem-solving skills and act to move towards your goals. Third, believe. It means feeling confident that you have the skills to achieve the goals that you have set for yourself. Your self-determination inventory score may be high or low, but your score isn't set in stone. It can change over time. Our brain is like a muscle. We can train it and make it stronger the more we use it. Your self-determination will become stronger if you practice those skills. You need to decide, act, and believe in yourself.
Decide, act, believe. You're going to hear that over and over again today in this workshop. To summarize, self-determination is an ability, and everyone has that ability. It means I decide. That can mean small decisions about which shoes to wear or what to have for breakfast, and big decisions like where to live and what medical treatment you want. The one thing I want you to understand today is that everyone has the ability to make decisions, no matter what their disability might be. Sometimes doctors or bank workers or even family members might suggest that you are unable to make a decision. It's okay to ask for time to think about a decision, or ask for an explanation or some help in understanding what the decision is about. But you can still be in charge of making the final decision on a subject. Self-determination is something that doesn't mean you always get it right the first time. It does mean that you keep trying. In fact, that's how everyone learns, both with and without disabilities. It also means that you believe in yourself. You know in your heart where you want to go in life, what you want to do. All of those little decisions add up over time and become big decisions. For example, choosing a healthy breakfast or listening to your favorite music every day will give you energy and a clear mind to make bigger decisions. Take a moment to type into the chat about how you practice self-determination in your life. I can tell you a story about my son. He had a health crisis just before the pandemic, and he knew that he needed extra help to get through every day. He told me that he wanted to find therapists to help him. So we talked to his case manager, and it took a long time and a lot of doctor's appointments, but we found the right people to help him. He has a schedule to keep track of his appointments. Every week, I check in with him to make sure that he still wants to continue all those different types of therapy. After 4 years, his health is starting to improve again, and it's because of the big decisions that he had to make about taking care of himself. But it's also about the little decisions he made every day about getting to his appointments on time, about taking his seizure medication on time, about eating healthy, about exercising, that led to those improvements in health. Maybe Joyce and Sally have some examples of self-determination in everyday life. Joyce, do you want to add something? And please type in the chat if you have an example of self-determination too.
Sure, I will. I'll tell everyone an example of my daughter's self-determination. So she works some part-time jobs and earns her own money. And one thing she loves to do with that money is to go and buy DVDs. Now, we have many streaming services, and so I don't think we need to be buying DVDs into our home. But that's the way she practices her self-determination. That's her choice, her decision. And so she uses her money to buy her DVDs, and I really don't have any say in that. And that's an example of her demonstrating her self-determination.
Well, my son is older. He's 26, so he has a plan of service, which you get once you're out of high school from, and it's kind of like an IEP, but it's more for when you're done with school. And so he makes decisions. He can make decisions who he wants to hire to help him. He can make the decisions of what he wants to do when his community living support person comes every day. Do they want to go to the bank, do errands, whatever he wants to do? He's the one who determines that.
Thank you. Those are all really good real life examples. I don't see any other examples in the chat, so we'll go to the next slide now.
There are three.
So here we're going to talk about the keys of self-determination. Self-determination is such an important ability that I want to explain all the ideas behind it. The first idea is freedom. So you can think about, do you want to go to college, go to work, or both? Do you want to live with your family or in an apartment with roommates? Do you want to walk to the library after lunch or do some laundry? Those are all examples of exercising freedom in your life. The second idea is a financial authority. So maybe you earn money from a job. Maybe you have a bridge card and get Social Security. Whatever your income is, you can choose how to use your own money. And that's the example that Joyce just gave us about her daughter. The next idea is support. You get to decide what types of support you might need, and you choose the people to help you get out in the community and achieve your goals. And I talked about how my son chose the therapists that could help him achieve better health. Finally, there's responsibility. Being part of a community means that you not only receive services and support, but you also give back. You use your money wisely to live a happy and healthy life. You can practice kindness. You can build friendships with people in your community, and you learn new skills. This can lead to employment opportunities and recreational opportunities in the city you call home. And I was just thinking about the friendships that my son has developed in our local community. And we're going to be taking a group of his buddies to see the Barbie movie on Saturday. If you have an example of how you practice responsibility, you can type that into the chat, and I can ask Joyce and Sally if they have examples too.
It all goes hand in hand when you get your money from work or your benefits or whatever. You have to spend it responsibly, or otherwise, like my son's case, he won't have money for his rent, or he won't have money to pay his electric bill. So those are all things he has to consider before he buys himself a new train, because that's his thing, not DVDs, his is trains. So those are all things he has to be responsible for.
Somebody typed in the chat, giving my child small tasks that I feel he can do since he's only 3 years old. Yep, my son started with chores when he was very young too. He loved pressing buttons and flipping light switches. Now, most people would consider that to be an annoying behavior and would try to stop that behavior, but I interpreted it as a strength, and I immediately taught him to use the vacuum cleaner. I taught him how to start the dishwasher and how to start the washing machine so that he was helping me in all the chores around the house. We were loading the dishwasher, and then his reward was that he could press the button to start it. We would load the laundry into the washing machine, and his reward was he would press the button to start it. The same with the dryer. And we began to expand that to lots of other life skills. And that's an example of a strength that gets turned into vocational skills, because then I taught him to use a camera and he became a nature photographer and he's had art exhibits. So vocational skills can come from those strengths, but also just the life skills that can lead to independent living in the future. Now, Joyce is going to talk to us next about strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. Next slide.
Thanks, Karen. So that was a lot of information about self-determination. And I hope that everybody has a little bit better understanding about self-determination and using it when we need to decide, act, and believe in ourselves. So sometimes it can be helpful to think about who we are, doing some self-reflection, thinking about our strengths, preferences, interests, and needs, our spin, and using that to help us find more information so that we can be more self-determination. And we're going to talk about this great tool that will help us do just that. Next slide. So this is the the undetermined one-pager. And this is going to be on the link of our resources. And if you think about a time when you really wanted somebody, such as a teacher, to know about you, but you really didn't want to have to take the time or the words to explain it, or it might have just seemed awkward. For example, if you think about your IEP, generally those are pretty long documents, and it does cover a lot of information about you as a student and as a person, but they're pretty long, and it takes a really long time to go through that information, much less explain it to somebody. So this is a tool to help kind of get to the most important things to you, to help you be more self-determined. And this is a tool that was created as a way to cut through all that paper, get to the important stuff quickly, and it's all on one page. And you'll see each column has a top heading using the acronym SPIN, your strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. And under each column is where you would think about and list what would go in that column specific to you. And, you know, there's no right or wrong answer, and it's perfectly fine to have help from your parents or teachers. And this would be a great tool that you would develop when you were introducing yourself to new teachers or even a new boss. And I have done this with my daughter, and it was a really good tool to get to know what was important to her, because she has her own thoughts, so they might not always be my thoughts. So now we're going to go into it a little bit deeper. And on the next slide, you'll see each one of these columns. And so the first one is my strengths. So this is where you would think about what you were good at. What do you do well in the community? And are these, oh, there we go. What do you do well in school? And feel free to put in the chat, if you like, something that you're good at. What are your strengths? What do you do well at home? What others might say you're good at. So for example, my daughter listed that she was really good at reading, and she is organized. And everybody's would be different. So the next section is my preferences. So this one is where you want to think about what you prefer or what you like. These are things that are easier for you, what works for you, but you don't necessarily need it. It's just how you prefer things. So either what works for you or what helps you be more successful. So think about some of those ideas, and then you would put those down in that section. So for example, my daughters would list that she likes to have quiet, calm areas. And most importantly, she prefers any environment she's in has no dogs. And again, feel free to put any in the chat that you would like to suggest as other ideas for preferences. So the next section is my interests. So here's where you're going to put what you enjoy doing in your spare time. Doesn't matter if you're good at it, it's just what you enjoy. What is it that you're doing when you're not at school? And what are your hobbies? What do you like doing for fun? Again, think about the things about yourself that you want to communicate to somebody else, that you want them to get to know who you are. And so again, my daughter, she put her interests are watching DVDs, spending time with family, and pizza. Those are things that she is really interested in. And also here in the chat, Karen says her adult son always wants to have a dance party with his favorite music. What about your interests? I think that's great. I have to say my daughter would love a dance party as well. And on the next column, we'll see where it lists my needs. So this is where you put down what it is that you really need, that helps you succeed. What helps you do your best? Do you, and how can others help you do your best? So what is it that you might need to be successful? And again, feel free to put any ideas in the chat of things that you might need to be successful. My daughter, she likes having lists every day, just so she knows what's happening. She also likes a calendar. We have a big calendar, and she can look at it every day and see what's on her list for the day. And she also likes me to show her how to do something. She would prefer not to read the directions. She wants me to show her, and then she can do it herself after that. Karen's son, he needs a strict daily schedule. He likes to know exactly what's going on and when it's going to happen. And that's a great example of something that you want to put here, because if that's an important thing to you to help you do your best, you definitely want other people to know about that. Next slide. So this is one I did for myself, just as an example, even though I did talk about the one I did for my daughter. So under my strengths, I put being organized, and also I'm good at helping others. My preferences, I put my daily list under preferences. I don't really need one. I can generally remember what I need to do, but I like it. I like being able to cross things off. And also I don't forget what I'm supposed to do that day. I also really like a quiet area when I'm working or reading. Again, I don't absolutely need it. Right now, there's some dogs barking in the background, which are kind of making me a little distracted, but I really would prefer it was completely quiet, but I'm just have to go with it and do my best. The next column, my interests. I love reading books. And I really like delicious food, especially going out to eat and trying new foods. And then lastly, my needs are going for a walk every day or doing some type of exercise, either yoga or something like that. And probably most importantly to me are my 8 hours of sleep every night. I love a good night's rest. If I don't get one, I tend to be pretty crabby in the morning. But everybody's different. So you would put what works for you, what you need. Next slide, Chris. Oh, I'm sorry. You can go back to the other slide. So I wanted to point out, when you go to the link that we will have in our resources to fill out this sheet, you can fill it out online. You can print it out and write it out. If you do it on their website, you can save it as a PDF and you can email it to people, which I thought was super helpful. But there's also an option if you aren't sure of what to put. There's an option where you can have it give you pictures of ideas that it's suggesting, and then you can put those pictures under each category. And I think that's really helpful for folks who might need just some ideas of what am I good at? I don't know. And so I thought that was a really helpful tool. And again, this link to this website will be on our resource page. Now you can go to the next slide, Chris. Thanks.
Thanks, Joyce. I think you made a really good point there about using pictures instead of words, because using spin to self-advocate does not necessarily mean words. It can be with any type of augmentative communication, any type of nonverbal communication as well. So a lot of people I've heard say, well, my child will never be able to advocate for herself because XYZ. But that's not really true. Every time you're expressing an interest in something, every time a person expresses a preference for one thing over the other, that's self-advocacy. And we need to, by systematically organizing that on the SPIN worksheet, you're helping your student advocate for themselves into the future. So we're going to talk about self-advocacy now. That's how we use the SPIN worksheet. Self-determination that I was talking about earlier is an ability that everyone has, the ability to make decisions. But self-advocacy is a set of skills, and anyone can learn these skills. You can use self-advocacy skills to tell people about your SPIN, your strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. No one else understands your SPIN the way you do. So you are the best person to take charge of your future and your goals and share your SPIN. Self-advocacy means literally, I speak up. Think about some places where you can practice speaking up. The picture here shows a doctor's office, but school is another place where people can practice self-advocacy. Self-advocacy also means I understand what I need. So at the doctor's office, you might tell or show the nurse that you have an earache, or at school, you might tell your guidance counselor that you need to switch around the classes on your schedule. When things go wrong, self-advocacy means that you are the one who will make the situation right again. So it could mean taking the medicine on schedule to clear up that ear infection, or making sure that your schedule has the right classes to help you graduate on time, or just asking for help when you're not sure about something. Asking for help is something that everyone has to do sooner or later, and it's an important part of self-advocacy. Basically, these skills are to communicate what you need, set a goal to get what you need, and to do each step to achieve your goal. Take a moment to type into the chat a goal that you're working towards, or that you or your friends or your parents are working towards. When my son was in high school, he really did not want to take a ceramics class. Most of the other students with IEPs were just automatically placed in that class. I have no idea why. He really wanted to take more business classes. So he talked to his counselor. He explained what he wanted to do after high school and which classes he wanted. He got the perfect schedule that he wanted, and he ended up having a great school year and learning some really good vocational skills in those business classes. So let's think about if there's anything in the chat. Sally typed in, my son has been working at his job for 2 years and he has not had a raise. So she's encouraging him to ask, but he's afraid that he will get fired if he asks for a raise. So that's an important real life example of practicing self-advocacy in adulthood. Any other examples?
Yeah, I'll add one that I just had with my daughter. Now she is 19 and she has often said she wants to be an artist. So I, in my mom mode, was ready to sign her up for classes, research all the different artist opportunities for her. And I took a moment and asked her some more questions. And it was a little tricky finding the right questions. But what I learned about it was she doesn't want to be a paid artist. She wants to do art because she loves it. And she doesn't want to take classes. She wants to do art when she wants to do it because she loves it. And I thought it was a great learning experience for us both because she self-advocated. I had these grandiose plans of signing her up for community college classes and having a support team with her, and that was not at all what she wanted. And I think it's a win-win. She can still call herself an artist.
I actually had a similar experience with my son. He doesn't want to take an art class because he doesn't like being told what projects to do, but he loves to look up paint by number kits based on, classic artists like Van Gogh, Matisse, and Monet. So he's got all these paint by number kits that he loves. And so he'll just sit in the evening working on his paint by number kit, doing it systematically. It's something at his own pace, and he loves the finished results. And he says, look, I'm a great artist, just like Van Gogh. Next slide. So there are opportunities to practice self-advocacy everywhere we go, but that doesn't mean it's always easy. Let's watch a short video that gives some examples of what could go wrong. Chris, could you start this video?
You heard the term self-advocacy before? Have you had a teacher or parent tell you should be a self-advocate? What does that even mean? Self-advocacy is an important skill for all individuals. Self-advocacy means speaking up for yourself and making sure that your needs are met. It's normal in elementary school and high school for your parents and teachers to advocate on your behalf. Talking to your teachers about grades and homework, and communicating about your needs and IEP if you have one. However, when you finish high school and go to college or university, it will be expected that you can do that advocacy for yourself. Even if that's 2, 5, or 7 years away, starting early and building this skill over time will make it easier when you get there. But there are a lot of reasons that being a self-advocate is hard. Sometimes we don't know what to ask for or why we need it. Sometimes we don't believe that we deserve what we need. Sometimes we're embarrassed or ashamed to ask for help or accommodations. Sometimes we don't have the skills necessary to be an advocate. Sometimes we've had bad experiences in the past, which make us not want to try again. All of these things are normal, and we want to help you tackle those issues and work towards being your own self-advocate. Not only so you can get what you need in the classroom, but also so that you can practice the skills needed to be an independent adult in the future. Check out our other videos in the comments and start building your advocacy skills today.
To me, self-advocacy means not giving up when things get tough. It can feel really weird to ask people in charge to change the way they're doing things. Sometimes they're really used to doing things that way and they don't want to change. But those skills to communicate, to set a goal, and to take action can really be practiced anywhere. At school, at home, at work, in the doctor's office, and anywhere you go around town. One of the areas that people ask about the most about accommodations for students with disabilities is in extracurriculars. My son is passionate about music and dancing, so he really wanted to go to his senior prom. But he wasn't dating anyone and he didn't want to go alone. His speech therapy group at school planned a promposal for some friends with a song and a banner that they practiced, a song that they practiced, and then they made a banner. And they went to the prom together in a group, as a group of 5 friends. Because some of the friends had medical conditions, they had to make sure everyone was safe and that the teachers at the prom knew what to do in case of an emergency. Because they advocated for themselves, they all had a great time together. And that's an example of using spin to practice self-advocacy. Anybody else have an example of practicing self-advocacy in real life?
I think that it is an important tool that I've noticed for my daughter as she's gotten older at the doctor's office, where when she was younger, she would, the doctors would naturally look to me for what was concerning her. And now I just love the idea that the doctors are more and more greeting her first and asking her what Where does she have pain? What is she concerned about? So that's my example of self-advocacy.
My son had his annual physical 2 weeks ago, and the nurse, when we went into the exam room, the nurse actually started asking me all of the questions about him, like how to spell his name and stuff. And I just looked at her and said, he can answer for himself. And sure enough, he knew exactly, all his whole medical history. He knew all the answers to the questions, but she just assumed that I would be answering for him, and that wasn't right. I've spent years teaching my son how to make the phone call to schedule the doctor's appointment, how to check in on his patient portal, making a list of questions to ask the doctor. So he always has a list of things to discuss when he goes in, because he sees a lot of different specialists. And, he can answer those questions for himself. And sometimes the people who are trying to help him don't know how. So we still have to guide them on treating our youth as self-advocates. There's an example here. My daughter has spoken up to talk to her pediatrician on her own, and it has helped tremendously. Yeah, because it's such an empowering experience for a young person. And my daughter chose classes for middle school. Is that self-advocacy? Yes, because you're choosing your own, schedule, your own electives, following your own strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. So that's very empowering also, choosing your own schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to add on this. I've worked with many families in certain schools that I've worked with. They put all the students who are on a certificate of completion path, they put all those kiddos in the gym class, and they don't automatically ask the students, do you want to be in the gym class? Because some don't want to be in the gym class. And my daughter had art, and a parent said, well, how did she get in art? My son would love art. So I think that's an important avenue to self-advocate for sure on your classes for students who can do that.
Sally, do you have an example?
Well, since my son's older, you know, he has to do it a lot more often, like the job, trying to get him. He's not there yet, but hopefully he will be. And he had to, I sent him to driving school because he wanted to go that. So, and I really didn't want him to, but that's what he was asking for. So I guess as a parent, I was always a firm believer in whatever his interests were, I was going to be like Joyce, just go overboard on how I wanted things to go, because I always, that's how I kind of rolled. Whatever was his interest, that's what mom was going to do. So.
That's great. Also, with all these extracurriculars and elective classes, it really can change the whole experience of middle school and high school, especially if you follow what the students' interests are. In middle school, my son actually sang in the choir. He was off tune, but he did it. He showed up for all the concerts. He loved every minute of it. And he was on the track team in middle school too. If you look at some of the sports teams, some of them require tryouts and some of them are no cut. So at our school, swim and track are both no cut sports. And so we were able to find people from the peer-to-peer support group who were in track with him. So he had peer mentors with him on the track team. And we worked with the track coaches to make sure that he was always chaperoned, because they wouldn't assign a parapro to the track practice. And he ended up having a fantastic experience with everyone cheering for him. The 400-meter was his event. And then in high school, he was on the unified basketball team. And because my son is tall like me, we're both over 6 feet tall, he was the high scorer on the team, and he just loved hearing the crowd's cheers. So there were a lot of extracurriculars that he was able to do. But again, it was following his strengths and his interests. And yeah, like I said earlier, They wanted to put all the special ed students into the ceramics class. My son refused that. He requested classes like cooking, photography, drama. He took entrepreneurship. He helped run the school store. That was a class. He was in the broadcasting class, so he did the weather report on the school TV station. And he just had a fantastic time in high school because, again, it was all following his interests. He was advocating for himself the whole time. And when he was in drama class, the drama teacher thought, oh, we'll just keep it simple and he can just do soliloquies from Disney movies or something like that. My son doesn't understand the humor of Disney movies. It's just too complicated for him. He takes everything literally. And so he ended up taping himself doing a soliloquy from Macbeth, the final soliloquy of the play. And he knocked that out of the ballpark. And everybody was talking about, let's simplify it, make it easier for him. But he chose, Shakespeare and a scene from Macbeth, a very complicated play, and did really well with it. So again, that was following his own strengths, his own interests, not what the teacher thought was best for him, not what other people chose for him. Anyway, that's my story of self-advocacy. Now Joyce is going to talk to us about decision-making. Take it away, Joyce. Or not Joyce, Sally. Sorry.
It's okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so decisions, we all make them, and we do them every day. It's just part of living. And so I wanted to define it a little bit. A decision is choosing what you want to do and then making up your mind and doing it. So that's a decision. Next slide, please. Okay, so we make everyday small decisions, and a small decision is like, you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. You don't have to do a lot of thinking about it. Like, well, am I going to watch Netflix tonight or Hulu or whatever? Or do I want to go to McDonald's for lunch or Taco Bell? These are all small decisions that don't really require a lot of thinking and a lot of money. And we do them every single day. So can you guys think of any small decisions that you make every day? I know for my son now that he is an adult and he has his worker that comes every day to help him out. He's the one who has to decide, okay, we're going to go to the bank today, do errands, go grocery shopping, do chores, whatever. So those are decisions that he has to make as an adult. Let's see, I don't see anything. Okay, so next slide, please. And then we have our big decisions. And big decisions do usually require a lot of thought, maybe some research, and some money. And an example of a big decision would be like whether you're going to buy a cell phone, which costs a lot of money, plus you have to pay for the service, or where you want to go on vacation. Some vacations can be very extravagant and but it all costs money and planning. So these are big decisions. And because they are big decisions, you might need to ask the people that you love and trust the most to help you with those decisions. And this is known as supported decision making. I'll give you an example. My son wants to move to England and live there in 2 years. So I, of course, as his mom, don't want him to move that far away, but this is what he's hoping to do. So now he has to research what it would take to move to England, what would be, how his benefits would be affected, how he could get a job there. You'd have to fill out paperwork for a visa or a passport or both. And so those are all things he has to think about before he can actually make that decision. So any of you have a big decision you're working on?
I'll share another story about my daughter making a big decision. She is currently attending her local high school. It will be her 6th year. And she is doing a little bit of work-based learning. And I decided to ask her thought about it yesterday because I didn't really do that beforehand. Shame on me. And I said, gosh, I think you're probably, how are you feeling about going back to your same high school for the 6th year? Are you getting bored? And she said, yeah. And and all this time here, I've been a nervous Nelly about thinking about moving her to a different school. And I said to her, would you like to look at a different school? And she said, yeah. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. So now I'm going to help her put in a plan to tour some other opportunities for her. I reiterated she does not want to go to college. But this is a big decision, and she will be the one that will drive that decision, but I'll put in, the basic tools to help her make the right choice for her.
Okay, next slide, please. Oh, yes, change might make more problems, but that's just part of living. We all, no matter what choices we make, we all have the consequences of making them, big ones or small ones. So I guess you just got to roll with it, and as we'll get further into the video, you can always change your mind. That's the one good thing. Okay, so this video is on supported decision making, and this is Jeff, and he is making medical decisions. So could you play that video, please, Chris?
Prior to age 16, my parents were heavily involved in terms of my medical decision making. My doctors would talk to them and confer with them about any ideas that they had for surgeries for me, and I kind of just went along with that because, doctors know best, right? Then I'd say about when I was 16, the doctors started talking to me. And I'm not saying my parents weren't part of that process, they definitely were. But it was good to know that they were talking to me and explaining to me exactly what they were thinking. And then by the time I was 18, it was more or less all up to me. I actually came to them with ideas for surgeries. Said, oh, I'd like to be able to do this or do that, and I think this would help me do that. So I'd say, yeah, since I was 18, I've been pretty heavily involved. Obviously, my parents still deserve a lot of credit. They still play a major role in that. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I still consult with them pretty heavily. Like, if there's a medical decision to be made, I definitely talk to them about it.
Give information.
Okay, so that was Jeff's story on supported decision making. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is something we need to keep in mind about decisions as well, and that's that we can change a decision. It's important to remember you can always change your mind. If you don't like the decision you make because it doesn't work out the way you really wanted it to, then you can change your mind. Let's say Ross gets to England and he gets there and he becomes lonely because all his family is over here. And he decides, okay, this probably wasn't the best move for me. So he has to come back. There's no shame in that. That is risk taking that we all have to do. And we can always change our mind. For example, here's a small decision that you might make. You buy a pair of shoes, and when you get home, you wear them around on the carpet. And they don't feel good as they felt in the store. So you can change your mind, another pair, a little bit more effort, but we can always change courses. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so you can also, my internet is really crazy today, so I don't know if yours is changed or not. Here we go. So you can make decisions that others may not like. For example, you might choose to have your hair cut short or dye it a different color, like these women in the pictures. And some of your friends or family might think that looks dumb, or they don't like that idea, and they don't want you to wear your hair like that, but your hairstyle is your decision. So you can make decisions that other people don't like. Like, for instance, with the example of my son going to England, I would not like that decision if he made it. I would be so afraid something would happen to him and he'd be so far away from me. But if he could work things out and have a safe plan, then I guess I would go along with it, even though I didn't like it. So, because everybody should be able to make decisions, and I just believe that in my heart, and I hope that all of you are able to make decisions on your own. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's some decision-making tips to keep in mind. And the first one is, I can make a decision. Everyone can make decisions. I can learn from trying things out. I can talk to other people about making a decision. I can change my mind if I want to. I can make decisions other people don't like. And I can make decisions that are different from other people's decisions. Okay, next slide, please. So Karen is going, or Joyce, it's you that's going to summarize, right?
Yep, it sure is. Get all of our names straight. You know, audience probably doesn't know we've worked together for years, so it's comical that we keep messing up each other's names. So that was a lot of information, I know, and it's okay if you don't remember it all. We have our list of resources to help you remember and go back to the important points that you might want to look at again. But here's a brief overview of what we talked about. So first, we talked about self-determination, being in charge of your own life, and that's okay if sometimes that means it's with help. We talked about your SPIN, your strengths, preferences, interests, and needs, and using that to get to know yourself, helping you make better decisions, and helping your teachers to get to know you better too. We also talked about self-advocacy, learning how to and when to speak up for yourself. And lastly, we talked about decisions, small and big. Everybody makes them, and not everybody's going to like your decisions. And sometimes you might not like your decision, but we all get to make those choices and live and learn from them. Next slide, please.
And now I'll go over a couple of resources, and all of these resources are also on the handout page, and I believe Chris will share the link for that. I'm Determined has a SPIN worksheet and a self-determination checklist at imdetermined.org. The National Parent Center on Transition and Employment has hundreds of articles, worksheets, and videos on all aspects of transition, self-determination, and supported decision-making at pacer.org. The Center on Youth Voice, Youth Choice also has supported decision-making information at youth-voice.org. And our own website, Michigan Alliance for Families, has free training opportunities and information at michiganallianceforfamilies.org/transition. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. We have 1 minute left, and I'll let Chris finish it off here.
Yeah, so I don't see any questions coming in. So we will go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank our presenters, Joyce, Sally, and Karen. We really appreciate you for presenting today. Thanks so much for everyone that joined us today. We appreciate your time. If you still have any general questions about your child's special education, please don't hesitate to reach out to those regional parent mentors. That's a free service that we offer, and that's what they're there for. Like I said earlier, please remember to follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram. Please take a moment to fill out that survey that I posted in the chat just a minute ago. Like I said, Michigan Alliance for Families is grant funded, and that survey helps us out. Michigan Alliance for Families is a grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education, and Michigan's Federal Parent Training and Information Center, funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.